getting everything ready. Yes, I know I've got this now. Get rid of this reminder, turn off my email. Okay, cool. Dismiss, okay, awesome. I'm recording. I've uploaded, I put the slides in for the lecture. So if I go back into course content, you'll see that, I don't even know where we are. I need to actually change that. Edit. So you can see there I've popped the, taking a bit of time, it's temperamental. Yes, I've popped, oh, I didn't do any slides, Rebecca. I'm just going to go through the process from the start. So if you go back into whatever week I did it, yeah, Blackboard. So I'm actually going to start, I'm just going to go through the whole process again, just to show you from the very scratch. So what I'm going to do first of all, why is Blackboard so slow? Piece of. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all is I have opened a ArcGIS Pro window, and I've closed all my recent projects, so you can see that there is no recent projects showing. But one thing I just want to show you is a couple of settings which are really useful. So, oh, it's actually not. So if I go into options, and if you go into general, now what I've done is I've changed this here. So when I've gone create projects, I know I did this in about week 2, but it's useful re-knowing this. So I have all new projects saved in a custom location, which I have set. Obviously, if you're working off a USB, don't do this. And also, you can start a new default geodatabase, which is what I've previously been doing. And you can, I've just actually done same default geodatabase. And I can go okay there. But one thing that's really useful, which I literally only just discovered the other day, was if you go right down the bottom until display, there's various things. Don't fiddle around with too much of this stuff unless you know what you're doing. But what you can do, you can see sort of scroll down to display and you can see that there's a cache. If you clear the cache, when you go OK, and oops, hang on, let's just stop this. I don't want it to do that. So basically what I've done is done same default geodatabase for all projects, which is under options general. And then I've gone into display and I've gone clear cache. And that's just a way of making your computer work faster. Look, it should work in a Mac, but I don't actually know. And I've gone OK. Another thing, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start a new project. Now I've deleted all my stuff I was working on. So I'm just going to click on map. Make sure you signed in too. I'm going to call it assignment 2 overview. And I'm going to navigate to where I want to keep it. So you see it's in my projects, but I'm going to put it under teaching. Now I did have one, but I've deleted it. Called assignment 2 overview. OK. And what I've done now is I've opened a new project assignment 2. And I know you've all done this, but I'm just going from scratch. So it's sort of like overview. Weeks 7 and 8, I went through a lot of these things. In fact, all the weeks up until now. Then what I'm going to do is go into the course. And in weeks course content, I think it was in week 7, there's the student data, which I'm then going to download. I know I've downloaded it 100 times, but I'm just doing this from scratch, as I said. Next week's online workshop, which is week 11, which will probably be the last online workshop I'll run, I'll go over sort of some things like, you know, setting up layouts and stuff like that. Also, just while I'm downloading this project, if you see here, there's the rubric, GIS project 2. If I go back into assessment, obviously yours is not going to look the same as mine. So there's GIS. There are some exemplars. Some people went to great trouble to make these editable and copied them almost directly for some of them. Like I can actually see that it comes up as bright pink in your assessment. So copying is, yeah, I can see if anyone copies. So there's the rubric. Oh, hang on. There's the rubric, and the rubrics are very detailed. I mean, this is all sort of blah, 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 but just look at these things, and I mark all of these along this sort of stuff. So the elements is that TOS layer, data viz, analysis. Maybe I should have done that the other way around. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Then charts and tables, layout, text. Then report, right? Required elements, including formatting, and the required elements in a report are things like, you know, you got a heading and you got a cover page and you got references and all that sort of stuff. Spelling and grammar, I'm a bit picky, sorry. Relevance to brief. So do look at this. Then if you look at the assignment instructions, which is that one. Upon blah, 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 blah. The brief. This is probably the most important thing. You are an ecologist working for Queensland Parks and Wildlife, and they have tasked you to. This is your brief. Please respond to the brief. Data layers required is pretty much just those. You'll produce 3 maps and a chart as well as a short report. Look, I'm not overly picky if you go over the pages, but if you go over the pages with good maps and charts and data and maps and all that sort of stuff. And look at how some of the 3 exemplars I gave you are quite different, but they all got very high marks. So there's other data sets you can use, the ones I gave you, or you can use anything off ArcGIS Online or Living Atlas or anything. So this is the sort of, so I said layout 1, 2, and 3. Feel free to do lots of layouts if you want to. Vegetation percentages and chart. Okay, so that's pretty much what you have to do. So if I go back in there, I've downloaded the data. Show in folder. Oops. I'm just going to extract all. I'm going to extract this to where I created my new project. Which was here. Select folder, extract. I deleted everything that I'd already done, so this is starting from scratch. Okay, cool. And then I'm actually going to go back into that and delete it. Cool. Okay, I was playing around with my. So then what we do is I'm going to go into, just never mind that, I'll close it down, go back into ArcGIS Pro. And you can see I've already created this thing. Just going to refresh it, I can see it. So in this thing was the geodatabase, the assignment 2. And this was the default geodatabase. So this is something I always do. Okay, it's really important. It says right click on database, go add database, navigate to the folder. I just want to show you something quickly because this is a really simple thing, which is actually, and probably it's because people are used to Macs. But when you sort of go anything like navigating in the file thing with ArcGIS Pro, you will see that up there, it immediately defaults to your project, and you don't have to randomly go through all of this stuff. So all I go down here is I just click on this, go on student data, find my geodatabase, click on it. Oops, hang on a sec. Select existing geodatabase. Go OK. Now you will see that it's not default. So the first thing I'm going to do is right click on it and go make default. Right click on default GDB and remove it. Don't delete it. And then save your map. And then what I'm going to do is in the geodatabase is your main layers and I'm just going to click on Saraba. That's all I'm going to add for the moment. Just make it black outline, zoom out a bit. For your base map, I recommend you use something like with topography because it's a very hilly area and it just helps. This is a base topography thing. And if you right click on map, you can look at the properties. I wish it had stopped raining, it's driving me nuts. It's actually GDA 2020. Okay, so there it is there. There's lots of optional layers. I'll just chuck them all on. Some of them are the same as others, so really, to be honest, you can use some of them if you like. I'll show you the ones you should use. The VMA is the Vegetation Management Act, and you can clip it to Saraba if you want. It's got a lot of stuff in it. This is the regional ecosystem. The thing you'd probably be looking for is this thing called VM Poly. So if I symbolize it by VM Poly, if any of you are doing planning or even working for one of the state governments, no, not graduated colors, sorry, wrong one. Yeah. VM Poly is the thing they use to assess vegetation. So if you're working in ecology, for example, you might end up as working for, like, I don't know, one of the parks and wildlife for all I know. So this is the thing. So it stands for endangered, dominant, least concern, canal, estuary, non-remnant. So it's quite a useful thing that you might choose to. Let me just chuck Saraba over the top. You can always clip it to your area and delete some things if you want to. Okay, so that's quite a useful one. Let's remove it. Look at the attribute table. VHC is the vegetation hazard class. And if you see there, it's quite useful with actual more complicated vegetation types. The one you probably would look at is BVG 5 meters. So if I symbolize this as BVG 5 meters, it is 2014, but it's pretty much VG. Oh no, I don't want the code, I want the description. And you can see there, if I look at that, let's just zoom out. Rainforests, coastal communities, wetlands, mangroves. There's a lot of like more detailed vegetation things here. Bushfire prone layers is pretty much the same thing. Yeah. Should have looked at some of these things before I gave them to you. What's class value? Oh no, that's because I linked it to something. Let's just remove that. That's BPA, bushfire prone area. Actually, and also this one, or is this the same thing? So most of these you could probably delete. In fact, what you could do is go into your thing. What did I say? VHC, BPA, was that one I just got rid of? This was deleted. I want the BPA, so I'm just deleting them. Just so you don't get confused, you can keep them if you like. Broad vegetation groups, hang on, let's just have a look at the BVG. This is broad vegetation groups. It all comes from the state government. I don't think this one's actually got text on it, so let's just remove that. Let's just remove that, we'll delete it. Oh, you don't have to. VHC, bushfire prone layers, let's delete that. So this BPA SEQ, what was this one? Okay, that's useful. Core koala habitat is useful. VHC, you can keep, it's useful. And the VMA is useful. So if you look at the core koala habitat, this is quite useful too. It's also got the same VMA regional ecosystems thing, but what you have here is core habitat or habitat value. Habitat value is pretty useful. Let's just symbolize it. I always do when I look at new data. Where's my symbology? I've lost it. When I look at new data, I always look at the attribute table first, and then what I might do is have a look at what's on and just give it a quick symbology just to have a good idea of what it is. So that's, yeah, I would keep that one. Let's just remove it. And lastly, this is a really useful one as well. This is the bushfire prone area. And what you would look there is the class. And the class is just add all values if they don't show. And you see there, high potential bushfire, medium potential, and very high. So that's really a useful data set to use as well if you want to add some other data. So I'm just going to remove that. So that's all the data sets. So I've got BPA, core koala, VHC, and VMA, and then you've got here, which is the fire scars. You can just get off this off portal as well, but okay, remove it. So what I have here is I've got Zarabar. I'm going to zoom to layer. I'm going to save it. And then you will see under your folders, you've got rasters. There's 3 rasters here. And I'm just going to drag them all onto the map. It'll ask me if I want to build pyramids, and I'll go yes for all of them. I could tell it not to do that, but I tend to not always do something, because then if it's something, you know, I don't want to, because then it sort of does it as default. So that's really, so basically clearing the cache is really useful. If I also go into my search bar on a Windows computer and I type in, I can't show you this. I suppose I can. No, if I type in, I'll type it into the contents, which is going to look weird. You need to do this when you haven't opened Pro. When Pro is closed, so if you type that into your search bar, it opens a file folder. And you can see that if I just go Control-A, delete, and when it says continue or skip, I just go skip, but I've ticked this box so it doesn't make me do it each time. And I just go skip. It's not going to delete anything to do with ArcGIS Pro because I've got the software open. But that's another way of also getting rid of temporary things, and it helps a lot when say the program decides to fail or something for some obscure reason. So what I'm going to do here, first of all, is I'm going to save it, and I'm just going to turn off all my rasters. And first of all, I'm going to click on the raster, which is 2017. I'll start with 2017. And on the top tab, I go into Imagery, Classification Tools. You can try the Classification Wizard if you want. I find it doesn't give me as good. And this opens up the default Training Samples Manager, which stands for National Land Cover Data Set 2011. I'm going to edit this. You can edit it or you can create your own. So let's just show you how to edit it. See if I can select all and no. So just right click on it, go left click, go remove class. I only want 5 classes. You can have more classes if you want. So I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, can't count today. Forest, I'm just going to get rid of all the subclasses. Now you can call your classes whatever you like. You can also add more. You can use some of those raster vector layers to add classes if you want to. Now you see I have these 5 classes. I'm going to edit each of these individually. So I'm going to water, I'm going to call it, oh, what am I doing? Let's do burnt first because that comes under. Now let's do bear. Okay, I'm going to call it bear. Let's just make it some sort of berry color. Spongy. All right, it's already got a value of 10. So I'm going to go OK. Developed, I'm going to edit properties. I'm going to call it burned. I'm just doing in alphabetical order. Okay, barren, I'm going to edit it and I'm going to call it, what was the next? GE? I'm going to call it, what was the classes I called it? Oh, no, stop raining again. Hang on, I'm just going to open my door. And turn off my dehumidifier. Okay. What's the point running a dehumidifier if the doors are open? Okay, what was it? Grass. Let's make it eucalypt. I'm just doing it in order. If you look at the VHC, you can see we'll leave it as 30. We'll make it a sort of eucalypty color. Okay. Forest. Edit properties. I'm going to call it, you can call it rainforest or thick forest, strictly speaking not. And also for the alias, if you're editing it this way, it doesn't really make any difference, to be honest. Make it a foresty color. Go OK. And shrubland. Wait, no. I want to put in alphabetical order. To make it grassland, okay. Oh, you're so fussy, Heather. Okay, grassland, and the last will be forest, okay. Just because I'm being particular. It's not actually rainforest. You could call it thick forest if you like. Just any forest ecologists around here, please don't criticize me too much. Okay, so I now have 5 classes. Feel free to make more if you can sort of figure out what they are. And then what I'm also going to do, I'm going to save it, and I'm going to save this as a classification template. I don't want to save it on it because you're going to use the same thing for your 3 rasters. So I'm going to go save as. I'm going to call it whatever you want to schema or whatever. And of course, as I say all the time, blah, 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 well, this isn't actually description, you just ignore that. In my output location, I recommend obviously put it in the same place, and you might want to put it in rasters or just under the main heading, just do there. And I'm going to save it. So now I have saved my schema. I'm going to save. I'm actually going to, now what I'm going to do is I've got my schema. I'm going to click on the first, so you can click on any of them. Doesn't really make any difference. Let's do bear first because I've been to such great trouble to, also I don't like that color. Oh, never mind. So first of all, we have our 2017 open. We've got our schema, and these are the things that are the different ways that you can, you know, the different tools you can use. I tend to just use the sort of this one here. And I've clicked on bear, and I'm going to go into my raster, and I'm going to find things that look bare. And I'm just going to draw little things. Anything that looks bare. The important thing with this, when you're doing this sort of image classification like this, is rather zoom in than out. I'm using my center mouse button to zoom in and out, which probably is a bit, I don't know if that's even bare. It can be bare in my classification. If you sort of lose yourself, then sort of zoom out of it. That might be grassland. I don't know what that orange thing is. I'm just going to leave it. That looks pretty bare. You could also do urban, which are these white things. And you could add some water because there's water in there too. Well, you don't have to actually calculate anything to do with water. So basically, because we're looking at vegetation, that looks pretty gross. It's important. What it's important, though, is like when you're doing it, it's probably better to go more in than out. So if I sort of zoom in there and do the sort of pinky stuff there, but what's really important is not to go over into something else. If I sort of go down in my thing, sorry, my computer's not, well, it's thinking about something typical. Well, let's drag it up a bit so I can see. So why are you not showing? Oh, okay, I didn't do it properly anyway. Let's hope it didn't come in because otherwise they're going to classify it wrong. So let's just do another one. So I wouldn't want to do a bare thing that went over into something that looks foresty, because in that case it should be highlighted. I don't know why it's not highlighting. It does actually highlight, but something seems to be weird with my, let's just delete the last 3 just in case. Okay, so I've got all these bare. Try get about 20 or so. That looks pretty gross up there. Let's, oops, make that bare because it looks horrible. So just make sure you don't sort of go over into another class. Well, so you'll see that this image is taken from 2 satellite images. Once you've got your thing done, then highlight the first one, go right down to the bottom, left click and collapse them. If you don't do this, then what happens is that when you actually save your training samples manager, I've got only 15, but get about 20. When you do your training samples manager, it actually creates a new row for each one that you haven't collapsed. So now I've clicked on burned. I need to do this again because I went into map. This is all burned. So when you do these little burned ones, try and just get things that are burned. So this is all burned. And you can use older burns too. And I tend to sort of avoid doing ones that are that's also, I don't know about that. Looks gross. We'll call it burned anyway. Nothing else that color. And then I think there's a burnt area down here. That's an old burned area. You might choose it. We'll see if it doesn't stuff up too much. Okay, and there's some burnt in there. Let's just click that. You see, I'm zooming in quite a lot, and then I'm going to collapse burnt. And then I'll go into eucalypt, which is this sort of stuff. All of this is eucalypt, but you can see it's got different, I know it's a type of eucalypt, it's not for rainforest. Also try get things that are maybe on the slopes and that, just so you can give the computer, but just make sure you don't go over into something that could be another classification. That's a really weird one I just drew. Wish you could get like 1 meter sentinel or something. What is 5 meter? That'd be like really cool. I am constantly on the search for better and more detailed data because I love data. As you probably figured out that by now in like whatever week we are in. Also, I recommend with this image, try to choose some of these because you can see it's from 2 different satellite images, orbits to be used the technical term. I'm collapsing eucalypt. Then let's just do grassland. It always classifies grassland beautifully because grassland is pretty much not that different color-wise. I'm just choosing a random selection of grass from all over the place. This is agricultural, so there's lots of grass around here. It does tend to be a bit freaky with the might freak out that bit with the very dark green irrigated grass. So in the workshop, one of you, who was it? I can't remember, it was one of you, if you, I'm not sure if you logged in today, was asking about these areas with the things they burn every year. So I looked at it in Google Earth, and we couldn't quite figure out what type of crop it was. Probably some fodder crop like lucerne. I don't know, because they seem to burn this every year. And then last but not least, let's just do some rainforest. There's a lot of rain. Well, it's been all rainforest. Yeah. I'm just going to zoom right out. Sorry about this. With rainforest, I would select some of this too, because it is all forest. It's just in a different aspect. So I'm just selecting a whole lot here. Da, 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 la, 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 la. Okay, you could do urban. You can add all sorts of things. I don't care how many classification you add to, but bear in mind, just we're looking at vegetation. So, but you might want to make it more detailed. I have no idea what this orange thing is. Maybe there's a quarry. I should actually have a look. No, Heather. It's supposed to be showing people how to do things and not getting distracted with data. Feel free to look it up on Google Earth. Okay, so I've got a whole lot of rainforest. So once I've done all of this, and this is what, of course, what you have to do for each one. And there, now what I'm going to do is I've classified them all. I'm going to now save it. And you can save it in your database. But you can't save it in a feature layer data set because it won't let you. So just call it training 2017. Save it. I'm going to right click and zoom to the layer. I'm also going to close the training samples manager, and you'll see it asks, do you want to save it? And I've gone yes. Now, if I go back into my geodatabase, let's just right click and refresh it. You'll see training 2017. I'm just adding this to the map. You don't have to. And I just want to check that everything's fine. I've got 5 classes, all that sort of stuff. Okay, I'm going to save it. And then what I'm going to do quickly, and this is what we have to, everything in this workshop, everything in this you have to do 3 times, which is good because by the time you do 2021, you're good at it. We're going to click on the image again, click on imagery again, go into classification tools, and we're going to classify it. Now there's lots and lots and lots and lots of different ways of classifying. So I'm going to call it, I'm going to make it random trees, my training samples on the map. I'll just leave that as default. I'll also output it as classified 2017. Sometimes I just leave it as default because I don't know what it's going to like. You don't have to do random trees. Feel free to play around with some of the others. I like random trees. Actually, it is based on random trees are the good one for vegetation classification. You can also like have a look at those sort of stuff. It says music is detected. It actually was my wind chimes. So I'm going to run that. And it's training the classifier. And it's generating a classified data set. And it's classifying it in the background. And if you want to at any time, what I tend to do, it's probably more relevant to it's probably more relevant to the next one. So I'll show you for the next one. Hang on a sec. I'm just opening something in the background while it's working on it. So if I look at Google Earth, for example, and I want to have a look at, just go in there. So I'll just zoom in there. If I want to have a look at Google Earth and I want to go in somewhere else around there somewhere, you can actually also add the KML if you want to. Where's it hiding? Somewhere around there. This will do. So you can have a look at there. So say you wanted to sort of verify something. Where's all that stuff that those the ones? No, there they are. So you can also have a look at this. You can see obviously this was taken. You can have a look. It's quite terrifying how close you can zoom in with Google Earth. So you can have a look at Google Earth. Google Earth's got a really good thing too. Oh, okay, it's given me that sort of thing, which I hate and I never quite figured out how to get it back again. But you can also run. Oh, this looks so cool. Okay. I want to get it back again. I always do know how to get it back again, but I sort of don't. Exit. Oh, there we go. Just do it that way. So you can do it. There's the ground level view, but Google Earth's actually quite interesting in that you can actually do a timeline on it. Does it work? So you can actually run a timeline and you can actually look at the so it's not just, so if I went back there, I think I have to put timeline on this layer, but anyway, I've forgotten to do timeline to Google Earth. But anyway, it's really cool. So let's go back into ArcGIS Pro. So apart from me getting distracted with Google Earth, and what I can do, it's classify the thing. I assume that's just because it hasn't loaded. Okay, and what I was doing with this sort of stuff, I'll turn off the training samples. So generally speaking with classifying, what I would do was click on the classified, click on appearance, click on swipe. And by doing that, you can sort of zoom in and see how has it classified it. It's classified that dark green as rainforest. That's actually water up at the top there. So you could add a water and that's water too. So that's actually water, that's water. And so you can see I'm not too unhappy with this classification. Okay, cool. Save it. To get it off swipe, you've got to go into map and click explore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this down by 2017. I could even take 2017 off. I'm going to save it, turn off image classification, and take training samples off. When I say take things off, I mean actually right click and remove them. Also, when you are doing your layouts, you can use your raster data in your layout. This classification I'm doing and converting to vector is just for your analysis. So I'm going to turn them all off. I'm going to put 2019 on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly the same as I did before. So I'm going to click on 2019, the name of it in my contents. I'm going to go onto imagery. I'm going to go classification tools. And you'll see it goes back to NLCD. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go open the classification schema that I just saved. I think I put it in rasters, and that's what it is there. So you see, I've opened the same classification schema. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Now, there's lots of bare stuff in this. The reason you've got to do this each time, because this is satellite imagery, and it's taken at different times. And the colors are different, and that's how it uses, because, did I put it in the last mini quiz? There's 13 different bands in Sentinel-2 imagery, and the bands look different according to when, time of day, the orbit, all sorts of stuff. So if you used your training samples from 2017, it wouldn't work very well, because it's based on the colors of 2017 and not the colors of 2019, because there's lots and lots and lots of different things that can influence this. So I'm just going to look for bare bits, and this all looks pretty bare to me. All the sort of orangey pink can be bare. It's pretty qualitative. It's not that accurate. I know I've said this lots of times before, but just to emphasize it, then I go down. I'm going to do this quite quickly. Burnt, there's a lot of burnt stuff in this. Now, those are clouds. Thank you, Anna. And also Jan told me very helpfully that I was a bit confused in the first online thing about whether it was actually burnt bits or clouds. So I went into EO browser. Now that last one, can you see the last one? It sort of went over a bit. It's not highlighting very well. For some reason, it's not highlighting. I don't know why it's not highlighting. It should highlight when you click on it. Now that's also burnt. But just make sure you get it within the border of the burnt and not onto, say, barren. And is that burnt? No, sorry. Now, a lot of this is burnt. Also, when you're doing things like burnt, try and choose things that are a range of different burnt stuff. Only that's black. It's going to classify these clouds as burnt anyway, so I should probably just call it burnt, unless I'm going to be really picky. Also, yeah, what's else I'm going to do? I might do that. Might do it in the workshop if anyone's interested, or I might put up a YouTube thing on actually how to make your classified thing more accurate once you've done it. Watch, I'm converting it to vector. Oh, I'm just going to make that there. I'm going to go into Eucalypt. Oh, Eucalypts is a bit scungy looking here because it's all dry and gross, but this is all Eucalypts. I'm trying to find things that aren't burnt. And not barren. So basically, I'm just going around on this map and finding bits of eucalypt that are not burnt. That actually is burnt, I think, and not cloud. So I'm just sort of zooming in and out. That looks burnt to me. Let's just go here. And what you can do is, as I said in the lecture, you can go into EO browser and you can sort of look at the thing in EO browser. That looks burnt. I don't know if that's burnt or not. You can look at it in EO browser and you can have a sort of look and see whether or not it actually is burnt or whether it's just disgustingly dry. I mean, we forget really quickly how awful it was, 2 to 3 years ago, and how dry it was. Even up here, because now it's been like raining forever. I'm just going to go. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to quickly do some grassland. I'll just classify the others, and then I'll just go into EO browser on the same date. And I'll just have a look at to see if we can sort of you can also download it if you want to. One of the indices, for example. Oh, it's all grassland. So I'm just going to try find some grassland out towards the Gold Coast on the eastern side, which is where I'm clicking. There was more, probably because there's rivers there and they were irrigating it. Well, probably, almost certainly. 100%. I might do some sort of slightly less healthy looking grassland just so that the computer can get a better range of. So feel free to zoom in, but just as I said, don't go into the adjoining type because then it'll confuse it. Okay, so grassland, and we'll just go to rainforest. Sorry for the ecologists here. We're just going to click on. You could call it thick forest if it's deeply bothering to call it rainforest when it isn't all rainforest. Or there's a lot of riparian forest too along the creeks. Yuck. Sorry, I'm just zooming in and out rather than go back to the map because I'm lazy. It's very dry looking here, isn't it? Yuck. Even around Leamington there. I haven't been to Leamington at least a month because it's been so wet. Well, shouldn't be too many leeches now. Because I'm just talking while I'm. Okay, we've done that. So if you're a bit unsure about your classification, you can always go into EO browser. Let's open up EO browser somewhere here. We'll open up EO browser, and these images here, if you go back into Pro, you'll see they actually have a date on them, 18th of September 2019. So I can go into EO. Why don't I have Google Earth open? Oh, I can do it in Google Earth too. So I'm in EO browser. No, I'm not. There's EO browser. We can chuck wildfires on. We can just randomly go into the area where you can upload your. Am I logged in? No. I won't bother logging in. Yeah. Oh, Heather. Just type Cerebral or something, or Gold Coast. Anyway, so if I go in there, blah, blah, blah. I'm just doing it manually. In here, west of Hinds. So it's more or less there, and I can go into wildfires. Let's just search. We'll do it this way because I'm lazy. Chuck one of those in, chuck that in. It's horribly cloudy, you can't see a thing, but we'll just go to the date, 2019. What did I say? It was 18th September, and if I go into the 18th, and I've now put the take a bit of time to get to it. And you can see these are the different fire indices. So you could put a what is, I don't even know what atmospheric penetration is. Let's have a look. Composite, different bands. These indices are so cool. I really must need to. So there's, you can see like there, it shows fires, burnt area index. So you can see in this, the burnt area index, this is like the really, the burnt areas, but also what you can do, I found this quite useful in terms of the burnt area detection. So you can see that's like the burnt area, and you could sort of run a, you know, you could go into the day after that and stuff like that, or there's various different things. So you can also, if you're not too sure about your classification of things, you can always sort of like, you know, go into EO, oops, Earth, did I do there? Delete. Okay, so I'm going to save this as a training sample, and I'm going to call it, oops, no, you can't save it in the layer. I'll call it training 2019. I'll save it. I'll close this. I'm doing it quickly, so it's not going to be incredibly accurate. Then what I'll do is click back on it, go into my classification tools, go into classify, use the same one for each of them. I mean, you can use different ones. Oops, I haven't put it on the map yet. Let's just refresh. Chuck it. You don't have to put it on the map. It's just easier when you're doing the classification. Find my training samples. Call it something that makes sense. Classified 2019 and run it. And let's just right click and zoom to Sarabah. Oh, come on, Heather. Another thing you can too, I probably shouldn't do all these things at the same time, but another thing too, so I showed you how to clear the cache and how to clear your temporary file, but also what you can do is you can go into your analysis history, and you can click on history, And you can delete, or I haven't been doing any geoprocessing, so I deleted it. And this map I started from scratch. But if you're doing a lot of geoprocessing with vector things, I'll show you when we do some vector stuff. I'm going to untick. It hasn't actually loaded properly yet. I knew I shouldn't have done that. What did I do to it? Now I've stuffed it up. Let's untick this. Oh, there we go. Okay, so interesting. Let's just assume this is fine, okay? So I'm going to drag my classified just below my 2019. Okay, and finally, what we're going to do is click on 2021, remove that training, save the map, shut that down. So we're going to do exactly the same process again. Click on 21. Click on imagery. Oops, no, not classification, because I don't want classification wizard. It takes forever and it always crashes. Okay, so let's go classification tools, training samples manager. Open the one I saved, which already has come up with that. Okay, let's classify. That's a field, but it can be bare. Looks pretty bare to me. So all I'm doing is just drawing my little polygons in this, as I did with all the others. Oops, ones have gone over each other, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have different colors in your things, but just make sure that they don't go over into one of your other things that you want to classify. So you can go over different colors of bear, like, I don't know, that sort of orangey thing, but don't go over, so like, yeah, let me show you a better example. You could go over like that, but don't go over into something, a eucalyptus or whatever. And you can rather zoom right in and do it in detail, even though it's very pixelated, than doing enormous ones at the sort of scale of your map. Let's just find some more bear. Yeah. I know I'm moving around really quickly. Okay, they'll do. This is not good. I suggest you have some more classes than I am. Burnt. I know there's some burnt here. So there's the usual culprits of burnt. Let's just give all that burnt. If they're not next to each other, then try and find ones that looks, okay. That is, don't know, I don't know whether it's bare or burnt, that one up at the top. We could always go back into EO browser and have a look. But really, you might want to do that if you want to be more accurate. I'm just showing you, just going overview of stuff, just because I'm not going to go to a huge accuracy of this. Oh, that looks pretty burnt. Lots of nice different colors of burnt here. Probably looks like all planned burns. That's some burnt down there. It's an old burn. We'll give it some old burns too. Ew, 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 ew. Come on. That looks pretty burnt, and we'll leave it at that. Okay. Collapse it. Go into eucalypt. I'll find some eucalypts. There's lots of eucalypts here, though. You could always overlay one of the vector images and use that as sort of a template to draw stuff. I must admit, when I first did this project, that's what I did, but I wasn't entirely happy with the results, but feel free to try. If it works beautifully for you, please tell me how you did it. You never used to be able to do this sort of stuff so easily. It was like so complicated. You had to like write code and stuff. And while I can write code, well, let's just be strictly accurate. I can edit code to do what I wanted to do. It's gone over a bit into. I might delete that last one. Okay. I can edit code for it to do things, because I mean, code's quite simple. It's pretty basic what it says, but I can't write code from scratch, and it never works. I've never bothered to learn because I'm lazy. Well, I'm not really lazy. I just don't have time. And I love learning new things because I'm a nerd. Okay. Maybe in T2, when I'm only teaching one class, I'll go do my master's in advanced data analysis. It's from edX, it's free. Well, it's free if you don't want a qualification, if you just want the skills. It's $1,800 if you want a certificate. So anyway, I'm just doing some grassland. I'm just going to freak out with rainforest in this, but never mind. Let's just do some grassland. I'm just drawing little things. So basically, as you can see, I mean, this is the third time I'm doing it, but you know, you can see what I'm doing is pretty much exactly, except I do have to do different training samples for each satellite image for reasons I said earlier. Okay, I also do a bit more than I've done. It's just more accurate. I mean, don't do hundreds of them. Could if you want to. Take you a long time, be boring. Particularly if you're using a keypad. Because I'm old and I don't like using keypads. So I'm using my mouse, which is giving me RSI off my shoulder, I may add, because I've got shocking posture at home. Just excuse the sort of non-stop stream of consciousness talking whilst I'm doing this. Okay, you might want to choose this because this is rainforest. It's just like, it's a good idea when you're doing this to actually try and select things that, because you can see this area is very, very hilly. So it kind of influenced the, one of the ways I did this was I actually, I classified things like rainforest as shaded rainforest. So you can see, remember what I said, these ones, if you've got everything in the same folder, you don't even have to stuff around with any of that stuff. So I'm just going to call it training 1. I'm going to close my image classification. I'm going to refresh my geodatabase. I'm going to add this to my map. And then I'm going to click on the 21 again. I'm going to classify it. Just make sure, as I said, I don't care whichever one looks best, but just make sure you use the same schema and the same everything for each of your 3 maps. Otherwise, it won't work. Well, it will, but it'll be gibberish. So I have changed it to 21, and I have actually all my stuff there. And I'm running this thing here, and I'm running this image thing. And I should then have 3 classified images for each of the 3 years. Now there's lots and lots and lots and lots of different things that you can do with this. I couldn't be bothered doing the indices. I'll just do an EO browser. Because like EO browser will do all this sort of stuff like, you know, that this is doing. So let's have a look at the classification. If I'm not impatient this time, then we'll just wait for it to come up. I'll untick the 2021 because even though it says it's completed, it actually hasn't popped up yet. Let's just remove the training. Right click, zoom to layer. I'll wait for it to do it properly. It is there. It's just that actually it's, even though it's successfully completed, well, hopefully, because I'm way too impatient, let's just save it. Go into the catalog. Oh, refresh it. Wait for it to. Don't know what's not showing. I'll take it off the map and put it on again. Yeah, but I don't want it to actually stuff up my. Okay, there we go. You're just too impatient, Heather. Okay, so there we have the classified 2021, and you might want to put them all together, for example. So I'm not overly fussy, to be honest, about your mapping. You can use your classified, or you can, I mean, you can use your vectors, or you can use your rasters. But what we're going to do is we're going to convert these to vector, the 3 classified. In fact, you can take your originals off if you want to make your map look neat. And I'm going to convert all 3 of these to vector. Now you can calculate area in raster too, but it's easier in vector. Okay. So if I right click classified 2021, I'm going to open the attribute tables of all of these. And I am going to, actually, I'm not going to, so first of all, we convert it to vector. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert all three of them to vector. So I'm going to go into analysis, tools. We're going to call it raster to polygon, which comes up as the first one. My input raster, we'll just do it in order. 2017, the field is the class name, unless you want to mess around and try and figure out. Now I have, let's try to do it properly this time. Now I've actually changed the name. It hasn't worked. So let's try. We'll just try. I'll just added 2017. So let's run it and see if it works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It looks like it's going to work this time. It hasn't failed yet. Okay, I'm going to untick 2017 and untick the new one. Then I'm going to go back again, click it. Input raster 2019, field is class name. Go right down to the end of it and call it 2019. Run it. You can create multi-part features, which leaves out a step, but I found when I created multi-part features and I tried to calculate area, it freaked it out and it collapsed. It crashed it, so just do it this way. Okay, I'm going to untick that, and last. The reason I'm going back each time is because if I just do the drop, oh, I suppose I could do it. You can do the drop down, but make sure that you change the name. Otherwise, it just overwrites the previous one. Okay, so now I have three. I will have three. I will have three. Just grabbing a drink of water. I'm a water thing. Okay, so I've got three vector layers. I know they're called raster. Let's just untick these. And what I'm going to do now is, you can see there's my training layers. There's my, these are actually vectors. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open the attribute table of all of these. So I'm going to right click and go attribute table. I'm just going to hide the catalog or minimize it. Attribute table. Now I'm going to do this in this, I didn't do this in this order in the other ones, but it's easier to do it this way. So first of all, I only really want class name. And so I'm going to edit this attribute. I'm going to add two fields to each table, and I'm going to hide and remove some fields. Now we've done that heaps of times. So first of all, in this thing, I am going to add a field to 2017. I'm going to call it area. It's going to be double. Hang on, I'm going to call it area hectares. Now you can pick any area you want. Doesn't matter. But I recommend, I did in square meters in the first couple of ones, but hectares is better. Otherwise, you've got to divide by 1,000 or something, or 10,000. Now I'm going to add another field called year. Now I'm doing this now. You can do this after you've summarized attributes. It doesn't really matter. Then what I'm going to do is the ID and the grid code, I'm going to delete. And I'm going to hide the shape length and shape area. Can't delete them, otherwise I'd delete them. And then I'm going to close it. Now make sure you remember the exact names, because when we're going to append our tables, if they don't have the exact names, you can't append them. You can, but it's easier if you just call them the exact names. And even better, I mean, so I have class name, area, hectares, and year. Let's go into 2019, add area. Oops. It has to be exactly the same. You can't remember, just go back into that one. Oops, my fields. And it has to be double. Otherwise you miss out on your decimal places. And for the year, in the some of the workshops I said make it text. It doesn't make any difference. It's easier with short. Then we're going to delete. You can hide grid code and it doesn't really matter. So I've deleted ID and grid code and I've hidden these two and I've added area, hectares and year. Now there are lots of different ways you can do things on ArcGIS Pro, as I'm sure you've figured by now. So there's heaps of different ways you can do this. So I've added these. Last but not least, 2021, we're going to add. If I forgot and made this long instead of double, or made my year text and not short, when I come to append things or calculate things, it's not going to work properly. So that's very important. That's the reason I look at the field. So I'm looking at the field map, looking via adding field, but you can also, once you have the attribute table open, you can also just go, because it makes a green highlighted thing of table. And if you click on view, you can see you can also open the fields that way. And this is probably the most important thing of all. What is a data type? Okay, I'm just going to save it. Now I'm going to do a field calculation for all of them. We'll do the easy one first. Yeah, I'm going to right click, calculate field. And we're just going to type in 2017. Now, if you made a text, you type in 2017 as well, but you just do a single quote. Okay. I'll do the calculate. Calculate field. Our calculate field is probably one of the most useful things. It's going to show you how to do calculate field in QGIS. It's way more pain than this, which is why I do use QGIS for some things. And as I discovered, doing point clouds is way easier. So all I'm doing is I'm calculate. Oops, it's 2021, you idiot, Heather. If you stuff up when you calculate field, you can always just do it again. Doesn't matter. Okay, so I've added the field. I'll do the area hectares now, just because these are quite big data sets. I always recalculate area after having done any geoprocessing. So now I'm going to right click on area hectares. I'm going to go calculate geometry. I'm doing area. I'm going to find hectares. And my coordinate system, I will just go current map, which should be GDA 2020. And I'm going to go OK. These are quite big data sets, so it might take a bit of time. So be patient, Heather. Be patient, be patient. I've got background geoprocessing turned on, which means I can do other stuff, but it's probably a better idea not to do other stuff while you're doing things. You obviously can't do anything to that specific data set, but you can do other things, but also sometimes it crashes the computer. There's a lot of stuff going on in the background. So when it's doing these calculations, you can go into Control Alt Delete and look at your task. So you can see what sort of memory and stuff it's using, which GPUs it's using. So it's using quite a lot of your CPU and your GPU, you can see there. So probably it's a good idea not to sort of do too many things at the same time. Yeah, Heather, just pay attention to that. Okay, so what I'm doing basically is I have classified the 3 rasters, which I gave you. I have then gone raster to polygon, and I've converted them all to polygon with class name. I haven't done multi-part thing because it stuffs up mostly, so it's easier to do this way. I added 2 fields to each one. Area hectares and year. Let's just calculate our area hectares too. Calculate geometry. Area geodesic. Geodesic's more accurate because this is projected data. Hectares, and make sure that you use the same. So don't do square meters in one and square kilometers in another, and hectares in one, in some sort of random weird United States type aerial unit. They have to be the same, because obviously if you're going to compare the 3 years, the proportion of, I mean, you can chuck it in Excel, convert it, or run a field calculate to divide by 1,000 or multiply by 1,000 or something, divide by 1,000 or 10,000 or 1,000,000. To compare it, but it's always important. I mean, it's easier just to do it the same always, because then, yeah, why not? So what we're doing is we're calculating geometry. So I've done calculating geometry. So I've converted them all to vector. On the vectors, I have then added a year. So each one has a year for the year, and each one has an area, which I've put hectares for this one. Doesn't matter what unit you use, as long as it's all the same. Also, it's very important that when you add fields and you're going to be doing comparison of data, that they are the same data type. It's not going to work if one's long and one's double, or one's short and one's text. And then last but not least, 2017, you can do whichever order you want to do it. I'm just clicking area. You can do a lot of very, very, very powerful things with particularly field calculator. I use field calculator all the time. You can do really complicated stuff. You can do quite complicated code and everything too, though you might want to run a code window to do that rather. But you can do sort of quite complicated code. Depends whether you do Python or their sort of native code. Sometimes Python is easier. And you don't necessarily have to know Python. You can just Google Python for area or something. So whilst it's doing, so there's I'm doing something in the background. Pro Python. So sometimes if you want to calculate area, and you on a non-projected thing, you can't actually calculate geometry. So you can sort of look at simple strings. You can change the capitalization. You can do simple maths. It's really easy. Or you can do area. So there, if you want to, SQL's easy as. Just basic. You can write an entire field. You can do logic. Yeah. So there, for example, shape area. You can do that in Python as well. And there were area hectares. Okay, so what I've done is I have calculated. I've added 3 fields. And I will just minimize that. I'll save him. And what I'm going to do now is I have my 3, it's not actually called raster. This is deeply disturbing me. Oh, no, never mind. I don't like that it's called them raster. Oh, change the names then. Maybe don't call them raster because it's confusing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a tool on each of these, and my tool I'm going to run is called Summarize Attributes. Now, this does not create a new layer, but it creates a table. There's lots of ways of doing this. You can dissolve, there's all sorts of different ways of doing it. But let's just do it, Summarize Attributes. So I'm going to click my, let's see what it's called it. Yeah, it's okay. Your field is your class name and your year. Okay, that's important. It's very important that you put the class name and the year, because I did this in one of the workshops and I left off year and it didn't save the year. Then I'm going to put my field, I'm going to put my area hectares, and I'm going to sum it. Okay, you can ignore everything else. Let's just run it. And this is going to create a table. What did I say about not doing things at the same time? This is going to create a table. You see there? And if I right click this table, you will see that it has only 5 fields, which is lovely. Then I'm going to do the same with 2019. Just if you do it this way, instead of going back, just make sure you change the name. Otherwise, it'll just overwrite it. Leave all that exactly the same. Run that. And I will do 21. Where's it hiding? Okay. I don't call it raster because it's deeply bothering me, the fact it's calling it raster. Also, what I wanted to show you previously, you see I've been doing geoprocessing. This is another way of making things go quicker. You can see I've actually got a lot of our stuff in my history. I'm just highlighted them all and delete them. So all these sort of things can make your computer go faster. And I like my computer to go fast. Now what I have here is I have 3 tables. And hopefully they've got all the same classification. Blah, blah, blah. So what I'm going to do, I'll just quickly show you how you can create a chart. And then I'm going to show you how you can do something called append and then create a chart with all of them. So none of this classified. Actually, no, let's classify it. Okay, so this is the classification I set up. So right click and go to symbology. Okay, so I've classified this, but none of this is classified like this. So what I want to do is I'm going to close shut all of them. So if I want to classify 2017, I can click on here and I can go import symbology. And I can click on, what am I doing? Classified 2021. Oh, hang on, input layer is, sorry, input layer is my 2017. My symbology layer is classified 2021 and I can run it. Wait. Okay, I've got to actually, class name, value field. This should work. It's actually quite hard to get symbology off rasters. Oh, we'll try this. It's freaking out. Okay, so let's do it another way. So what I can do, go into classified, go into symbology. You can actually save it. So if I go into share, I can save the class name as something called a layer file. We'll pop him in there and we'll just call it there, save. And then if I go into raster 2017 and I go into symbology, I can import symbology from the layer file, which I will try and find somewhere. Oh, stop it. Oh, yeah, I know why. I apologize. It's because I'm using raster symbology and it doesn't work properly, so I apologize. You see, you can always get things wrong. Let's just symbolize it this way. We'll symbolize it manually and then so I'm going to put class name, add all values. Let's just we can put in, we'll just do it this way because I'm lazy. Properties. I think you can actually do the eyedropper. If I can do it this way. No, pity. You can do it then. What did I say bear was? A sort of weird pinky color. Trying to remember which one you do. Apply. We'll go back into the next one. Burnt. I remember which I had as burnt. And then I will save it as my layer file. Do it properly this time, Heather. Yeah, it's hard to actually get things between rasters and vectors with symbology and everything. I think this is more or less the same color I had. Doesn't really matter. But just do them all. This is a way of doing them all the same. Oh, my grassland was this one, I think. And finally, the rainforest was this one. Okay, so I'm actually making all my vectors the same color. Why did I even do this? I don't even know why I'm doing this. Anyway, so now I'm actually going to and untick the classified. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to share. I'm going to save it as a layer file. I'm actually going to overwrite that one. Okay, save. The reason is because the reason it didn't work is because the attribute table of the classified is actually different. So now if I go into raster 2019, I can input symbology. I can navigate to my symbology layer and hopefully this time it works. Oh, you slimy turd. I probably just haven't refreshed it. But anyway, we'll just do it this way. Import symbology, you can import it from a layer. Which one am I doing? 2019. You just do it this way, it's easier. Okay. Click on 2021, leave it as is and run that as well. Previously, the GIS Pro, you didn't have to go through all this schlep to do it. Anyway, so now I've actually symbolized them all. I don't even know why I did this. Anyway, so I've got the summarize attributes. And what I'm going to do for the summarize attributes is I'm going to show you how to quickly do a chart. So let's just do 2017. And I've right-clicked on it. I've just gone new chart. There's lots of different charts you can do. Some of them won't work because obviously it's different, wrong type of data. But I've gone create a bar chart and it opens up with this thing. So my variables is my class name, or you could do by year, not year now because only 1 year. My numeric fields is my area and I gone okay. And you can see it's actually created a chart which you can sort. It's actually easier to sort than Excel. And it's there, there's your hectare, but it's horrible name. So if you go on general, proportion 2017. Obviously then just change it, type. Could then create a chart, and you can see it's already got a chart. So you can do that with your individual charts for your individual thing. Under the series, you can change the color this way, but I haven't been able to figure out, I haven't been able to actually figure out how to do for each of the different ones. And you can change all sorts of stuff there. You can do format with the axes. You can change the number format. You can do numeric. You can change the decimal places. Why on earth are defaults to that? You can show 1,000 separators and it will do things like that, which is pretty useful. You can format this, guides, if you want to do a guide, and there's the title. And then you can add that, and you can see it's in your contents, and you can add it to your layout. But what I'm going to do is just do one more quick thing, and I'm going to go into analysis tools, and I'm going to go into a tool called append. Now there's about 3 different ways you can do this, but let's just do append. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get 2 input data sets, my 2017 and 2019. It doesn't really matter which way around you do it. And I'm going to add them to 2021. Now, you can see here in your field matching type, if you have things differently named, it will fail. You can do it this way, but it's easier just calling them all the same names. So I'm going to run this, and it doesn't look like anything's happened, but it has. So if I now click on my 2021, because I added them all to that, and I open it, you can see that I have 15 rows. If I sort it ascending, just to make sure it's correct, there should be 3 for each of the different types. So what you can do now is you can also create a chart with that. So I'm just going to say create a bar chart, and let's just do it this way. So I can do class name. We don't really need aggregation there. Add a numeric field and your hectares, and you can split it by year. So you can see the different vegetation types split by year. So it's quite interesting. I mean, you can do both of these if you want. There's nothing to stop you doing 2 charts. So if it's quite interesting to see, so I mean, you can tell just by looking at this chart that this is dodgy. But another sort of stuff you can do is you can also do it by year, and then you can split it by class name. So what you can do there is you can look at the different years and the different proportions, and you can label the axes if you want. And obviously then, as I mentioned, you can go into there and you can change the title, vegetation comparison by year, area, hectares, blah, blah, blah. And this one you can do a bit more with your you can actually change the vegetation thing there. So here, I wonder if you can actually import it the same as, Doesn't look like you can actually import it the same way as you can do with the normal symbolizing. Maybe you can. So there what you can do is you now have a chart with your vegetation, and there's various things you can do it. So you can rotate the chart. What will happen if I do that? So you can make it a chart that way. That might actually be better. And you can drag it if you put it onto your layout. You can switch. Ooh, clear. You can look at the attribute table, but what you can also do is you can go into, you can export it as a graphic, and you can export it, I suggest PNG, so maybe JPEG, or you can export it as a table. And you could call it a CSV file. You can, I think it's the only choice you get. You can do it as a geodatabase, but if you do CSV, you call it something like veg all, something very uncreative. And if I shut that down, so let's just shut that down. So first of all, I just want to show you, so say I decide to pop in a layout. We'll just do a blank layout, just make 4. And with my layout, I might want to pop in a map frame. Just chuck in a map frame somewhere there, perhaps. Make it bigger. And I double click on my map frame. I could add my classified to it. Let's just do 2017 perhaps. And then what you can also do with your map frame is when you're doing your map frame, you know, all the sort of standard stuff that you can add a chart frame. So say I want to put my chart in there, which would look horrible. And I can click on the chart frame. I can double click on it and I can see which chart do I want. So there's my map frame. And there's my vegetation proportion 2017. So you can see I can add a chart frame to it, to a layout. I mean, that's a horrible layout, but you know, also what I can do is just what I can do, and this is basically, so this is pretty much all you have to do for the assignment, but I just want to show you something. So I can go open, I prefer doing charts in Excel because it's way more powerful. So what you can do is go into, just make sure you put it on all files. Where did I put it? Find my CSV. Where did I put it? Don't know. There we go. So I'm opening my CSV, which is pretty basic. And I've opened it in Excel. But what you can do is I can highlight this. I can just highlight one thing. Sometimes it's better if you do it this way, and I can go insert, and I can just do an ordinary chart, or recommended charts, just insert, I don't know, there, chart. But what I can also do there, you see it's actually, oh, it's already done a pivot chart. Oh, it's so cool. That's because I'd pivot charted it already. Have I opened the wrong one? Oh yeah, sorry. I actually opened up the previous one that I've done. So this is actually a pivot chart, and I love pivot charts. And pivot tables, so you can go insert pivot table because pivot tables are fantastic and I love them. So this opens a pivot table. So pretty much what you do with a pivot table, it has all your fields and it has your things. So you can put the class name in your columns and you can populate your class name with values. And then if you just click on pivot chart, it will create a chart. And you can adapt these and you can change the colors however you please in your pivot chart. But what's also quite useful, you can hide these, don't worry. You can like field settings, hide legend field buttons. What you can do in pivot tables, which is incredibly fun, is you can click onto this, the values. You can go into value field settings. And you can choose it to show it as something else. So I can show it as a calculation. So if I wanted a proportion of the total, so if I wanted a proportion of total vegetation, I can go show as percentage of row total. Okay. And then I can go into number format and I can do it as a percentage, which means then it actually shows as a percentage on my chart. And if you want to put this into, once you're happy with it, you know, you're obviously going to add some, you know, you can go into your design and, you know, you can change it, you know, you can add all sorts of things with your design and headings and all that sort of important stuff, which you would do. It is important stuff and you would do it, okay. You can change your layout, you know, all that sort of stuff. So if you decide to use this one, you can call it vegetation proportion, proportion. Yeah, I mean, when you're doing headings or captions or anything, do put things that make sense, okay? Because don't just call it chart 1. I want to value field settings to go off and it's not working now. And you can also filter it too, and you can sort it ascending and you can change the colors, but let's just say I'm happy with that. Oh, that's how you do it. I don't want to format shape. Go into my proportion. I'm still trying to get rid of my filters. It was working fine before. Anyway, so say I'm happy with that chart. I can go save as picture or copy it. If you copy it, it's dynamic. So say I wanted to name it, let's just chuck it into the right place. No, not pedestrian survey. Projects. What is the time? Let's keep an eye on time. It's early. I always think I'm going to be way early, and then I sort of, so now I've actually saved it as a graphic, or you can just go copy. And then I can go straight into my ArcGIS Pro, and I can go either paste it, where it's hiding, and it's put it. Let's move my layout around a bit. And then it's actually pasted it into it. I mean, obviously, I'm not happy with that because it's horrible, but you can edit that picture. So I've pasted it in. But what you can do is, let's just remove it. You can also go insert, and you can insert, where's it hiding here, I think, picture. And then I can navigate to my picture. I can go okay, and then I can be more adaptable because you can see I've got my little crosshairs. I wouldn't put it there. And there you can see the picture can actually, and it's much more thing, and you can visible it, and you can do a path. You can actually put it dynamic. I wouldn't. You can. And you can actually add the picture to your chart, and you can edit the all different things like there. You can do all sorts of different stuff with that. And then you can go back into your ordinary sort of stuff. You can do the background. You can do everything else. So, I mean, you can do the chart frame. You can do it by picture. I like to do things in Excel because I like Excel. But you're not going to be penalized for doing things in ArcGIS Pro. So there's that. There you can change it to the same classification. Want to figure out how to do it the other way. And you can add that to there. You can do it dynamically and everything else. So that's pretty much basically what you have to do, is you have to get your rasters, classify them, save them as vector, do your calculations. I just added all the tables together by appending them. I added fields to each one. You can either add them when you do you can either add them to your vector, your original vector, like I did there, area hectares, or you can summarize attributes and add them that way. So do the area before you do that, because once you've summarized attributes, you can't really do field calculation on, you can see you can't calculate geometry on tables. You can add fields, but you can't calculate geometry. And that's pretty much all you have to do, and then write a report. And I gave you 3 exemplars. Obviously, don't copy from them. And yeah, so there's 3 exemplars. And have a look at, they're all quite different. All those students got very high marks. So they just give you an idea, but also remember that these were from T3 and we slightly changed the assignment. So what else have we done? So this workshop, Rebecca, sorry, I didn't have any slides, but feel free to go back to week 7, 8, and 9, I think, where I did this sort of stuff. I just wanted to go over from the beginning. And then the layout, you can do a layout with just one. You could do a layout, let's just go. There's nothing stopping you doing so side-by-side layout maybe with 2 data frames or whatever. So you could go insert map frame for 1. You can do a different map for each year. Or you can do layouts, so you could do 3 next to each other. I don't actually want all these layouts. I'm going to delete them all. So yeah, it's up to you. When you do your actual layouts, you don't have to do the vector. You can do the raster as well, but there's another thing you can do if you wanted to use the vector, because as you can see, this is very pixelated. You can also run a tool, and one of the things I showed, so there's one tool you can, I'm not going to do it now because it takes too long, but you can also do a tool called, I've forgotten the name of it. It was in one of my workshops. You can actually make it, you can get rid of, what's it called? Let me find it in my workshop. I've forgotten what it's called. Let me go back into my week 7 and see what I called it. I think I did it in last week's. Was it the weeks before? Let's go into week 8 and see if it's week 8. Workshop. Let's have a look at the workshop for week 8. Blah, 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 blah. So some of the stuff, I've done stuff slightly differently, but as I mentioned, there's lots of different ways. It's a bit like maths. Last week. It's a bit like maths. You can do quite a lot of different maths in different ways, but as long as you're doing it in a correct way, then it should be fine. So that was my spectral indices. Let's see if it's in this workshop. Can't remember the name of the tool. So there's, yeah, so this is one thing you can actually do eliminate. Now, eliminate's a really useful tool. So what you can do to do eliminate, I'll just do it quickly because we've got a bit of time. I can go and eliminate. And if I put, oh, you got to do the selection first. Okay, so say I want to eliminate little tiny pixelated bits in my 2017. First of all, even though theoretically you can do the selection this way, it never works. I can go in this way. I can go select by attributes. I can go where area hectares is less than. So what I'm trying to do here is get rid of really, really teeny little things. So let's do 0.5. That's quite big. Let's have a look and see what happens here. I'm just going to open the attribute table. It looks like it's selected a lot of things. So it has selected 1000, and if I zoom right in to here, you can actually see that it's selected. So what eliminate does, it selects a teeny, teeny little polygon, and it actually joins it with the area. So anything here, so this has been classified as rainforest. And it has, what layer am I on, 2017, and it actually then just combines it. So if I do eliminate, you can do an exclusion layer, but it's all Cereber. If it was a bigger area, for example, so I could run eliminate. There's various different things you can set in here. Oh, it's quite complicated. So I'll just run this in the background. Oh, this one's doing quite well. It takes a long time. But so what am I doing here is I've selected everything under a certain size. It's probably too big, to be honest. And then you can also, there's another thing you can run, which I've forgotten the name of, where you can actually smooth it. So I mean, just use the raster. The main reason I popped it into Polygon is because it's easier to calculate area in vector than it is raster, and it makes nicer charts. But yes, I mean, you can do it, but you see what you have to do for raster is that you have to you've got to find out the size of the actual squares that it's calculated and each little square, and then you've got to sort of like do it that way. So that's why it's way easier just doing vector. Also, it's important to know how to sort of do between vector and raster and all the different ways. I mean, I do things in various different ways. So that's Oh, yeah, hang on a sec. No, it doesn't matter, Rebecca. It's not the most accurate. Yeah. So what I suggest you do, Rebecca, and I did I know I have sort of emphasized that this isn't terribly accurate, okay? You can, let me just turn this off. You can be more detailed in your classification if you want to. It's a broad thing. So maybe sort of when you're actually doing your classification, and I would also do it in my report, is that just emphasize that, you know, you're using satellite imagery to do your classification, and that there are certain things that with your variables, you know, that might skew the data in some way. So like the different times, droughts, etc. You could also, no, I don't know, you could go onto EOBrowser and find a 2017 one, for example, that looks wetter, probably September. But yeah, so just write a sort of thing, you know, obviously we're not 100% accurate. This is not really how you would sort of, you know, I'm just sort of teaching you the basic techniques, but this isn't really all that accurate. You could also chuck on one of your optional layers like the, I don't know, do the VHC or something. So you could look at the VHC. Let's just categorize it, symbolize it. We'll just chuck in. Let's have a look at the symbology. I don't want VHC short. We'll do the BGVG. And we'll make it a bit transparent. Make it a lot transparent. We'll make it 50%. Tab out. And you can also have a look like this way and just sort of compare the classifications. I know this is from 2014, but it really hasn't changed all that much. So you could also have a look at your BVC, you know, one of these layers that I've given you to sort of be more detailed with your classification. I originally was going to do it this way, but it didn't work. Okay. I stuffed up somehow. And you can also you can clip these layers to your Saraba as well, so you don't have these enormous, like, you know, that's quite a big layer. I clipped them all to SEQ, but you can clip them as well. So yeah, it did seem to increase, but it wasn't really. It was probably because it's misclassifying eucalypt. It also misclassified. If I go into my classification here, I'll turn this off here. I won't do it into the eliminate, but if I go into no, let's go into the 2017. Oh no, I'll put it in the classified. So if I go into the classified 2017, you can see here it's actually classified that as rainforest, and it's got a lot of bushfire stuff. So bear in mind, so what I might do next week in the online thing is go into, so I'm in my classified here. What you can also do is you can actually, in the classification tools, you can reclassify it. Now, I don't have enough time to do that now. I might pop up a YouTube on that. I might have to go back into my training and remember how to do it. Or ask Chris. And you can actually reclassify some stuff. So if you're not happy with your classification, like I don't particularly mind the 2017, but if you look here, this rainforest type, you might want to reclassify it, do another. Yeah, it is. I know I need to. I mean, there's easy ways you can reclassify and you can actually export it. But yeah, I'll do some of that in the next week's online tutorial, because why not? Because we pretty much finished most of the class stuff now. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone. I'll see some of you in class next week. I'll go over some layout creation and I'll go out some reclassifying and stuff, because that's fun. Yeah. And thank you very much. And yeah, just remind everyone, read the instructions for the assignments. Anyone wants not in person. Anyone wants more feedback on their assignments, please, because I didn't really have a time to sort of, you know, have to sort of give detailed feedback on like 170 assignments, but feel free to, and you know, we can have a Teams call. This week's a bit of a nightmare. Okay, but do look at the rubrics and do look at the instructions and like, yeah, cool. And don't copy from my, I know none of you did this, but don't copy from my exam